Welcome to the Lifestyle as Medicine for the Planet lecture series. I am Dr. Ted Barnett, the high-tech doctor with low-tech solutions, also the president and founder of Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute. And I'm so excited to have you all here tonight. We have a wonderful presentation with Dr. Sailesh Rao, who will be talking about the greatest transformation in human history. And I'm just going to give you a little idea about what our agenda is for tonight. So doing a little introduction. At 8:05, or probably a little bit sooner, we're going to start our presentation. We do have an exciting variation on our presentation. We'll be actually doing a little play, which Dr. Rao has written and will be directing as well. And then around 8:45 or so, we'll start having Q&A. And at 9 o'clock, we will officially adjourn. However, if the conversation is still going like gangbusters, we will continue the conversation out in what we call the lobby, which is, you don't have to go anywhere. We do have some programs we'd love to share with you, the medical profession, and as well as individuals in the general public. We have our very own 15-day whole food plant-based jumpstart, which teaches a very low-fat whole food plant-based diet and has remarkable results. It is accredited through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. That's a program that we developed. Then we are also running the LIFT project, which is another, which we did not develop, but we love running it. And also certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And then we also have individual and group health coaching. All of those can be learned. You can learn more about all of those at rochesterlifestylemedicine.org. Just want to let you know a little bit about paleblue.community, which is our new community platform. And after this lecture, in a few days, we'll be releasing a recording of the lecture on that site. You'll be able to view the recording, the transcripts, the chat logs, and you'll be able to have a discussion about it right there on our community website. Simple, easy to use interface, incorporates all of our events, courses, and programs. And we do have our own apps on iPhone and Android. There's also a 30-day free trial membership. It's only costs $5 a month to join. If you subscribe, then you will have access to a little bit more. If you don't subscribe, at least you can come to these free events, such as you're involved with tonight. Dr. Sailesh Rao is the founder and executive director of Climate Healers, a nonprofit dedicated towards healing the Earth's climate. He's an environmentalist by occupation and systems engineer by profession. He actually invented the protocol for transforming early analog internet connections to more robust digital connections while accelerating their speed tenfold. Still today, any data accessed on the internet likely passed through a device implementing this protocol. Sailesh is a human, earth, and animal liberation, or HEAL, activist, a husband and dad, and since 2010, a star-struck grandfather. He has promised his granddaughter, Kimaya, that the world will largely stop harming her relatives, the animals, by 2026. He has faith that humanity will transform to keep his pinky promise to Kimaya, not just for ethical reasons, but also out of sheer ecological necessity. He has created a climate bathtub model to help humanity understand the system's solution space for reversing climate change and enabling a thriving planet. And if Dr. Rao could please turn on his camera. Let's see, there he is. Welcome, Dr. Rao. So good to see you.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And now it's just the two of us here on screen. I understand you have a special program that you would like to present tonight.
Yeah, it's a short play. It's part of the new book that I'm writing. So it's called The Tale of Two Planets. So imagine that you go to a doctor with a lump the size of a coconut by the side of your head. And excruciating chest pain that has been getting progressively worse day by day. You don't like going to the doctor, and you have been procrastinating for almost a year as these symptoms got worse and worse. Now the pain has become unbearable, and you finally look up the nearest doctor and take the plunge. The medical assistant conducts a series of tests, and finally you're ushered in to see the doctor. So that's the setup for the play.
All right, well, I am obviously going to play the doctor. However, we now have one of our staff members, Bruce Pollock, who will be playing the patient. And I want everyone to know this is the first time we've ever performed this play. So please be patient with us. But I have played doctor for a long time, so maybe this will work. I'm looking over your tests, and I see that your blood sugar level is off the charts. You are a person with diabetes.
Oh, is that bad?
Yes, diabetes is a chronic disease that can lead to organ failure. That's not the end of it. 3 of your coronary arteries are blocked, 2 of them 100% blocked, and the other 65% blocked. You also have leaky valves. Do you feel any pain in your chest?
Yes, Doc, it hits me every now and then, and it is excruciating.
That's terrible. How long have you had this pain?
Oh, it started about a year ago, and it's been getting progressively worse.
Well, I'm not surprised. You have severe coronary artery disease. I'm afraid I've got more bad news. The lump by the side of your head is cancerous. The cancer has spread throughout your body, and the lump is just the tip of the iceberg. How long has that lump been there? What is that thing anyway?
Oh my God, it's killing me.
Yeah, but there's worse. Your body temperature is 1 degree centigrade above normal. This is serious.
You mean I have a fever and it's serious?
Yes, the fever is deadly serious. If the fever goes over 1.5 degrees Celsius above normal, that can cause more serious problems. If it goes over 2 degrees Celsius above normal, it can become a runaway fever scenario. What have you been eating?
Oh, I'm a cheeseburger man, Doc. I eat cheeseburgers 3 times a day. Been doing it for 50 years, rain or shine.
What else? Did you change your eating habits a year ago when your chest pain started?
Yeah, come to think of it, I started drinking stickly sweet soda pop about a year ago, and now I can't stop. Before that, I used to wash my cheeseburgers down with lemon tea.
That's it. That's the reason for all your problems. You have to cut down drinking sickly sweet soda pop if you want to live.
But Doc, I'm addicted to sickly sweet soda pop. They are so sweet and delicious, I can't stop.
Look, your fever is serious. It can kill you as your cancer grows and you get a second lump the size of a coconut on the other side of your head. We've got to do something about your fever urgently.
If I gradually switch over from stickly sweet soda pop to sugar-free stickly sweet soda pop, will that reduce my fever?
Well, that's a good start. It might help reduce the rate of increase of your fever. Tell you what, I will introduce you to a friend of mine who's a sugar-free, sickly sweet soda pop salesman. He can cut you a good deal on sugar-free, sickly sweet soda pop by the case.
Thanks, Doc. Is that all?
Yeah, of course, that's all. That will be $1,000 for the consultation. Please pay the cashier when you are leaving. She will bill you for the test separately.
Weeks later, your untreated diabetes, heart disease, and cancer continue to rage on, and you're feeling much worse. Your fever has reached 1.5 degrees Celsius. Does this sound improbable and absurd? Well, this is precisely what we have been doing to the planet until now. A dream team of scientists from around the world at the Stockholm Resilience Institute identified 6 planetary boundary transgressions in the life support systems of the planet. By their estimate, climate change is only the 4th worst transgression, and yet that's the only environmental crisis that everyone talks about, just the fever. We're ignoring biodiversity loss, chemical pollution, and nitrogen and phosphorus loading, the top 3, and heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. Even regarding climate change, we mainly talk about the fossil fuels we have been burning for the past 200 years, the sickly sweet soda pop habit, and largely ignore animal agriculture that has been destroying forests for 10,000 years, the cheeseburger habit. Now we are being sold a bill of goods that we only need to switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy to address all of our environmental crises. So next, let's imagine a different scenario, as if we live on a planet where we address our problems openly and with integrity. Let's imagine how that same doctor visit might go.
Well, I'm looking over your test results and I'm shocked that you are still alive. Your blood sugar is off the charts. Your coronary arteries are blocked and that lump by the side of your head is cancerous.
Oh my God, what can we do?
Well, the conventional treatment would be to put you on insulin for your diabetes, a triple bypass surgery for your heart disease, and chemotherapy for your cancer. But I'm afraid that your body may not survive all these procedures simultaneously.
Oh,
There is another option that we can explore, which is a lifestyle change. Would you consider that?
yeah, Doc, I want to live.
Well, the number one thing you need to do is get on a low-fat, whole food, plant-based vegan diet as soon as possible. That would help mitigate all your problems.
Oh no, I've been eating cheeseburgers 3 times a day, rain or shine, for the past 50 years.
Well, that has to change.
But doc, my chest pains and the growth by the side of my head only happened when I started drinking stickly sweet soda pop about a year ago. Can't I just switch over from stickly sweet soda pop to sugar-free stickly sweet soda pop while continuing to eat cheeseburgers?
Well, when you eat cheeseburgers, you are ingesting saturated fat, dietary cholesterol, and animal protein, and they all shorten your life. Unless you quit consuming these animal foods, you are not going to get better.
Okay, doc, I'll do what you say.
Well, thank you. Here are some temporary prescriptions to stabilize your blood sugar, and I'll have my assistant give you the necessary support to help you transition to your new lifestyle. Best of luck, and I'll see you again next week. Author.
Thank you all. Yeah. So those are the two choices we face today. Planet A, where special interests impose sacred cows that cannot be touched, and we solve problems and not much really gets done. Or Planet B, where we put everything on the table and solve our problems openly and with integrity. So which planet do we want to live on? Yeah.
Great question. Well, thank you, Dr. Rao. That was wonderful. And I know you've got a presentation to share.
Yes.
So as soon as you get that up and running, I will disappear, and then I will reappear when you're done, and it's time to take questions.
Thank you much.
Absolutely. Oh, let's see.
So I got into this back in 2005. I mean, I was just an engineer working on making the internet 10 times faster. And I came home one day and I turned on the TV, and there was Vice President Al Gore talking about global warming, he called it. And I was so shocked by what he was saying. I told my wife, if half of what he's saying is true, I'm wasting my time. And she said, if you think it's that important, why don't you look into it? And I went down the rabbit hole. And within 3 months, I told my wife, we have to shut down our company and focus on this full time. And that's what we did. And then I wrote to Mr. Gore and I said, how can I help you? And he said, okay, come and get trained by me. And so I got trained by him in the second batch. So he just started training people at that time on delivering his presentation. So in return for the training, I promised him that I would give 10 of those presentations within the next year. But during the training, I asked him a question. I asked him, Mr. Gore, if we just restore the forests on the land we are currently using for grazing animals, can we not reverse climate change? And he turned to Roy Neal, his chief of staff, and he said, how did this guy get in here? So I realized at that point that there were sacred cows that people don't want to talk about. And as an engineer, I'm not used to that at all. Because in engineering, we have to look at everything because we have to solve problems. And if we ignore something, it's going to come back to bite us. So anyway, at that point, I knew there was something he didn't want to talk about. And then I started studying, the impact of animal agriculture. At that time, I was a lacto-vegetarian. And all the papers about dairy consumption were telling me that dairy is only a little bit worse than going vegan. Okay. And I was puzzled, why is it just a little bit worse? So then I came to this forest in Rajasthan in 2008. This is in Rajasthan, India. It's in a remote village, 3 hours from the nearest big city, which is Udaipur. And in this village, I come there to study the 3 major environmental problems: climate change, biodiversity loss, and ecosystems collapse. These are the 3 problems that the UN had identified. And I could study all 3 of them in this village because all 3 were happening here. And these villagers had built the stone fence that you see in the middle in 2002. And in 6 years, you could see lush green forests on the right And to the left, it was barren land. And to the left, I saw all these old cows walking around eating anything that was growing on the ground. And these were dairy cows. And these villagers were doing what I wanted with dairy cows. They didn't kill them. They would let them live out their lives. And I realized at that point that if you don't kill the cows and let them live out their lives, you're actually causing more harm to the environment, because these cows have to eat every day. And when they eat, there is nothing for the deer to eat, and the deer dies. When the deer dies, the tiger dies. So I realized that my consumption of dairy was actually one of the worst things I could be doing. So I had this sense of shame. And I immediately vowed that I'm going to go vegan. Right there, okay, on that spot. That was it. I went vegan on the spot. Veganism is a way of living that seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. This is the official definition of veganism. A simpler way of saying it is to live without hurting animals unnecessarily. That's what this as far as is possible and practicable means. And most people don't want to hurt animals unnecessarily. So most people are already vegan in their hearts. Okay? Very few people will say, yeah, I want to hurt animals unnecessarily. So it's what you have in your heart and what you do are not in alignment. And that's why people don't see that and don't practice veganism. But those who come to veganism and practice it, they come through it through three different portals. Health is one major portal. Ethics is another one. And the one I came through was the environment. Now, when you come to it for health or ethics, you don't have that sense of urgency, because, you could say, I'm feeling better today, and therefore I can eat some animals. Or ethics, you could say, we have been exploiting animals for 10,000 years. So what's the problem with exploiting them another 30 years or 40 years? But when you do it for the environment, when you really understand what's going on in the environment, you have a tremendous sense of urgency. It needs to happen right now, okay? And I liken that to seeing that your house is on fire. So imagine that your house is on fire, and you see people walking around in the room right above this garage, which is on fire. And you see them going and, cranking up the AC. And you're standing outside saying, get out of there. So if you say at that point, I don't want to interfere with their lifestyle, let them do what they need to do. They'll come to realization on their own. They will die. So you have this sense of urgency of telling them, get out of there as quickly as possible. You have to put out this fire, right? That's the way I feel about the environment. By the way, this is my house that burned down in 1993. And a policeman took this picture. My children were in the room above the garage. And I was in the kitchen making my coffee. It was early morning. And I had bought a brand new car, parked it in my garage, and the next morning, the car caught fire. It was a design flaw in the car, and mine was the 8th car that caught fire. And the manufacturer was waiting for 10 cars to catch fire before they issue a recall. Okay, so I was unfortunate that I was the 8th car that caught fire. So anyway, my children came running out saying, Dad, there is smoke coming out of the vents. And I was in the middle of making coffee. I just got up and I told my children, it's okay, don't worry about it. The heater just came on. So go back and play. They were 6 and 7 years old at that time. And within a minute, they came running out saying, Dad, there is black smoke coming out of the vents. This time I went and checked, and sure enough, there was black smoke coming out of the vents, as you can see. And then I went downstairs immediately and opened the door to the garage, and the car was spitting flames at me. My only thought at that point was, how do I get my children out of there? How do I save the life that was there in the house? Okay. I wasn't interested in my wallet, my papers, nothing. Okay. I just ran out with my children, hit the alarm, and the policeman came and took this picture. And the fire engine came within a few minutes of this, and they put out the fire, and then we had to be out of the house for 8 months while they rebuilt it. That's an individual home. Now the same thing is happening to a planetary home. So I went vegan in 2008 because I immediately had this sense of the planet being on fire. That what we were doing was literally causing us to die off. And sure enough, it was confirmed by the Stockholm Resilience Institute. They wrote a paper in 2009 saying that there were 3 major fires on this planet. So anything that's red here, if you leave it there, it's going to kill all life as we know it. Okay? So it's 3 major fires. And climate change is actually the smallest fire of the 3 major fires. Then 2015, they wrote another paper saying there are 4 major fires. 4 boundaries have been crossed. And then in 2023, September of last year, they're saying now there are 6 major fires. 6 boundaries have been crossed. Okay? So you can see that things are going in the wrong direction. The fires are getting worse and worse and worse. And the biggest fire is the loss of wild animals. Wild animals are dying at an incredibly fast pace. Between 1970 and 2010, 52% of all wild animals died in a representative survey of over 3,500 species. Okay? And this representative survey has been done by the World Wildlife Fund since 1970. And they do this survey every 2 years. And it takes them 4 years to compile the data and publish it. So this report about 2010 came out in 2014. And it said that between 1970 and 2010, we wiped out 52% of all wild animals. And when that report came out, I did an extrapolation. I assumed that we were killing wild animals proportional to the size of our economy. And as the economy grows, we're going to kill them faster and faster. And when I did that extrapolation, it showed that we were on track to hit 100% by 2026. And I was shocked when I made that calculation. And then I thought, maybe my calculations are wrong, because why isn't everybody talking about this if this is the case? Then maybe my calculations are wrong. And I thought I would wait for the next report to come out. And the next report came out in 2016. And he said that between 1970 and 2012, we wiped out 58% of all wild animals. So it went from 52 to 58 in 2 years, which is on track to hit 100 by 2026, even with the linear extrapolation. You don't have to increase it exponentially. And it has been getting worse just like that. It's now closer to 70% in 2018. And but we are already in 2024. So the next report is going to come out in August for the 2020 numbers. So we'll wait and see what it says. But anyway, this is the worst fire that's been going on. But I believe that in nature, every species belongs exactly as they are. Okay, I consider nature to be the perfect system design. I'm in awe of nature as a systems engineer. Because in nature, you see an animal breaking, say, an elephant breaking branches of trees, eating the leaves, throwing the branch away, breaking another branch, eating the leaves, throwing the branch away. And you may think that the elephant is being destructive to the forest. But wherever the elephant broke branches of trees, that's where the sunlight will stream and nourish the underbrush. Wherever the elephant trampled on bushes in the forest, that's where new pathways are formed for all the other animals. So the elephant has no choice but to belong in nature exactly as she is. And in the same way, I am convinced that human beings also belong in nature exactly as we are. What we are is a fire-wielding species. Okay? We were given control of fire about 500,000 years ago. And 50,000 years ago, we actually spread out of Africa and went to every part of the world. And those who went to the colder climates had to eat animals in order to survive the winters. Those who went to warmer climates could thrive on fruits and plants and vegetables and nuts and grains and seeds. So plant foods mainly. But over time, those who went to colder climates actually acquired better weapons because they had to fight the animals. And there was too much scarcity, right? They had to fight each other as well. So they acquired better weapons and they came and conquered the rest of us. Now we have plant foods available everywhere. Okay? We have technology that distributes the plant foods from where they're grown to where they can be eaten. We also have refrigeration technologies that allow us to preserve plant foods for a long time. So we are in a position where all of us can eat the optimum food around the world. Yet, the colonization process is trying to persuade those who are in warmer climates to eat like those who are in colder climates. So it's trying to get the people in India and China to eat more meat and dairy, which is the exact opposite of what we should be doing if we want to stabilize the climate. Okay? So Glenn Mercer actually said, the world is not such a terrible place as long as you look at it wrong. You start looking at it as if we belong exactly as we are, which is not the way we look at it normally. And you'll see that everything actually makes sense. So to understand how we can solve this problem, we have to look at how we use the earth today. And this is data from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And I've taken their statistics and I've put it on a map. Okay? So what they're saying is that if you take all the land in which we are growing managed forests, which is monocultures of trees for timber and paper and things like that, and if you put it all in one spot, it'll cover all of North America, all of Central America, and a little bit of South America. It's 22% of the ice-free land area of the planet. If you take all the land where the original forests are still there, and you put it together in one spot, it'll cover the rest of South America. It's about 9% of the land area of the planet, of the ice-free land area of the planet. When I say ice-free, I'm saying I'm not counting Greenland and Antarctica in the total land area of the planet. Now, if you were to do this to the planet, you will notice something amazing. You will notice that almost all the trees on the planet are only in the Americas. There are hardly any trees in the rest of the world. Okay. Another thing you'll notice is that 90% of the carbon on land would be stored only in the Americas because they are stored in the trees and in the soil that the trees live on. 90% of the carbon. So that is actually twice as much carbon as there is in the entire atmosphere today, and 4 times as much carbon as in all the fossil fuels we have burnt to date. Okay? So then you look at what happened to all the land where the trees used to live, because we have cut half the trees on the planet. What are we doing with that land? So that's the rest of the world. So if you take all the land in which we have built cities and railroads and highways and airports, and you put it in one spot, all the built land, it'll cover Madagascar, a little bit more than Madagascar, 1% of the land area of the planet. That's it. Okay. If you take all the land that we are using to grow the plant foods that we eat directly, that's all the fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, seeds, and if you put it in one spot, it'll cover Australia, about 7% of the land area of the planet. And from there, actually, we are eating 85% of the food we eat in terms of dry weight. That's where we're getting 85% of the food we eat in terms of dry weight. Only 15% comes from animal sources today. So it's already a plant-based world, if you ask me. 12% comes from land animals. And to grow that, we are actually using land that would cover all of Europe, most of Asia, and a little bit of Africa, about 43% of the land area of the planet. Okay. There's a little bit for biofuels, and then the rest are all deserts. And these deserts, unused land, are all formed by animal agriculture, mostly. Okay, animal agriculture is the leading cause of desertification. And then the remaining 3% of the food we eat comes from the ocean, for which we have been destroying the entire ocean. We actually have 10 times as many ships as we did in the 1950s, and our catch is only half in terms of total weight. Okay? And even to catch those fish, we have been bottom trawling, meaning we drag our nets from the very bottom of the ocean. And bottom trawling an area the size of South America every year. Okay? And if you keep doing that, there won't be any sea forests left. And we catch fish that are 2,000 feet below sea level. We actually can detect them from 2,000 even when they're 2,000 feet below sea level, and we can drop our nets down there and catch them. This is sheer folly, okay, how we use the earth. Now, what I'm pointing out is that if instead of 85% of the food from plant sources, if you make it 100% from plant sources, you will need maybe another 3% of the land area of the planet. Okay? So which means you can return 40% of the land area of the planet back to nature and the entire ocean back to nature if we all go vegan. Okay? So don't use animals for any purpose whatsoever. I emphasize vegan. It's not just the food, it's also clothing. So if we say we are not eating beef anymore, but we still wear leather shoes, people are going to be raising cows just for their skin. So you've done nothing to the impact on the planet. So it's about reducing the impact on the planet. And for that, we have to stop using animals for any purpose whatsoever. Because animal foods is the beginning. From there, you get pharmaceuticals, all kinds of things that come from animal sources. This is why I emphasize veganism. If the world goes vegan, we can actually quench all 6 planetary fires. So the smallest fire is freshwater change. What that means is that we are taking too much fresh water for ourselves and not leaving enough fresh water for wild animals, and they're dying as a result of that. And if we return 40% of the land back to nature and we bring back the original forests on that land, it will restore the water cycle of the planet. So that will go from yellow to green. Second is land system change. There again, if you return 40% of the land back to nature, that will go from red to green. The third is climate change. It's not even the worst fire, right? It's the third smallest fire. And that, as I pointed out to you, if you bring back the trees that we cut, we can literally reverse it, okay? Completely reverse it. I'm not talking about reducing the increase. No. You can completely reverse it if we go vegan. Then this nitrogen and phosphorus loading, this is from all the fertilizer we use. And runoff from the fertilizer is killing life on water, because it fertilizes the bottom of the rivers and bottom of the ocean. And as the algae grow, they suck up all the oxygen from the water, and then the fish die of asphyxiation. They don't get enough oxygen in what they're breathing. So there are dead zones in the rivers and in the oceans as a result of our fertilizer use. And there, half the crops we grow are to feed our animals. And if we stop eating animals, we can reduce that. And that will also go from red towards green. I don't know if it'll hit green, it'll go towards green. The next one is chemical pollution. And you can see this, it's fuzzy red at the end. It just means that it keeps going on and they don't know how far it goes up. Okay. And that, when we restore 3 trillion trees on the planet, the missing trees on the planet, those trees will suck up the chemical pollution from the environment and store it in their trunks. Because trees are amazing life forms. They can filter the water, and they take all the chemicals and store it in their trunks, and they transpire fresh water through their leaves. It's nature's filter. So we can get rid of all the chemical pollution. And of course, we have to stop putting so much chemical pollution into the environment every year. And then simultaneously, when we eat plant foods, we get only 1% of the chemical pollution in the plant foods on average compared to the animal foods. So it reduces chemical pollution for our bodies and for the planet. And finally, biodiversity loss or biosphere integrity. I look at the genetic biodiversity because I don't buy into this functional biodiversity argument. The functional biodiversity argument says that, so what if we kill all the herbivores? We got cows to replace them. I'm saying, no, there are other things that the herbivores are doing that the cows cannot do. So we cannot just substitute one herbivore for another arbitrarily and just make a monoculture of cows and think that will work. So we look at genetic biodiversity, and that one is 100 times, and this is why it's shown in fuzzy red. It's 100 times what is being shown here. And there again, when we return 40% of the land and we return the entire ocean back to nature, that will go from red towards green. And hopefully the wild animals will come back. Now, if you take into account the opportunity cost of the land, what is happening on the land today? Okay? And say that if we all go vegan, the trees will be coming back today. And if you take that into account, animal agriculture is already the leading cause of climate change on an annual basis today. Okay? And I wrote a paper showing that it's responsible for at least 87% of greenhouse gas emissions on an annual basis. And based on the 6th assessment report of the IPCC, which came out after my paper was published, I am able to update that from 87% to 118%. Now you may say, what? How can anything be greater than 100%? Doesn't make any sense, right? Well, what I'm claiming is that if the world goes vegan and we continue to use fossil fuels as we do today, drive around in our cars, go around in our, boats and ships and whatever, do the same thing that we're doing today, you will still see the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere coming down year by year. That's the power of trees today. Okay? And that's even if we don't do anything. If you start helping nature, we can make it go down even faster than that. So I say this transformation from a climate heating phase to a climate healing phase is the greatest transformation in human history, because it's greater than the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the internet revolution, or even the discovery of fire, because it's the discovery of the spiritual fire within humanity. The discovery that we now know that we belong on Earth exactly as we are. We are the thermostat species of the planet. It's our job, when we know that we are heating the climate, it's our job to stabilize the climate of the planet and keep it there. So first we have to cool the climate. So that means going from climate heating to a climate cooling or a healing phase. And I say it's the opposite of what we were doing. So we now have an egotistical system where we think man is above, woman is above animals. And when you invert that, it looks like a heart, right? So man and woman are here to serve the animals. That's what I call seva. That's service in Sanskrit. And then once you cool the climate, you can stabilize it. And that's the climate harmonizing phase. And that's where we can consider ourselves to be equal to all species. So that's the equal. So from heating to healing. So you have to literally do the opposite of what we're doing today. So what are we doing today? We have a system that's based on deception. If I can con you into buying my stuff, hey, people build statues for me. If I literally go and steal from your wallet, they'll throw me in jail, of course. But deception is actually encouraged in the system. Those who are able to deceive are actually lauded in the system. Think about sports, Deception is always lauded in sports as well. It's about domination. It's a domination over other species, domination over each other. Who's stronger than who? So we keep competing to see who's stronger than who. Death for the animals. 90 billion animals on land are killed every year, and 1 to 3 trillion sea animals are killed every year. So we're constantly killing animals, and then we're wondering, why are they all dying off, right? So we have to just put 2 and 2 together. And diseases for human beings is this disease management system that we have created, and destruction for the planet. So the 5 Ds, that's the heating civilization that we have built. So the healing civilization will be based on the 5 H's: honesty, humility, happiness, health, and harmony. And it's an amazing system design problem. How do you create a system around these 5 H's? And I would love to work on something like that, right? I show this picture of the satellite picture of the Amazon in the background for the current heating system, because this is an example of the deception that we do to each other. We deforest like this in the Amazon. We leave clumps of trees behind because the UN has a convention saying that any 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid with 10% tree cover is a forest grid. So we are pretending that we haven't deforested. So that kind of deception is going on in the UN at all levels. Climate change also. If you just say, based on the UN conventions, here is the emissions profile of these foods or whatever, it's all wrong, because they're not counting anything from before 1800. And most of the emissions happened before 1800 from deforestation, as I pointed out. Also, Steve Kaufman said, meaningful reforms are not possible until goals change. If we keep having the same goals for our system, No matter how you try to transform the system, it will remain the same because your objectives are the same. So I begin with the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. I mean, they're all good goals. Okay, no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being. I mean, who could argue with these goals? Quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy. And then you see number 8, I threw it out. Number 8 is economic growth. I threw it out because it is a redundant goal. And in systems, any redundant goal is going to make you go in the wrong direction, especially if you focus on the redundant goal. So if you have no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, do you care that the economy is growing? Why is that there? Well, it's there because everybody is pretending to meet all the goals by just growing the economy. They have no intention of meeting any of the other goals. They're only interested in growing the economy. I said, throw it out and then replace it with zero animal exploitation, goal 18. Then you can be serious about meeting these goals. And lifestyle medicine, American College of Lifestyle Medicine issued this graphic in 2023. They basically said that there are 8 risky behaviors that are responsible for 90% of healthcare costs worldwide. And they are poor diet, physical inactivity, smoking, lack of health screening, poor stress management, insufficient sleep, poor standard of care, and excessive alcohol consumption. Now, in a system which is all about growing the economy, these 8 risky behaviors are responsible for 90% of the healthcare economy. So if you want to grow the economy, you're going to be encouraging these 8 risky behaviors, which is exactly what's going on in the system. Okay? We give our children poor diet. We convince them not to have too much activity. We want them to just focus on their phones and use just their thumbs. Smoking is glamorized. We make it hard for people to go see their doctor. So all of these 8 risky behaviors are encouraged in the system because it has to grow the economy. And they lie to us mainly about protein. They tell you it's necessary to eat animal foods to get the protein you need. And Chris Gardner and others wrote a paper in 2019 showing the amino acid profile of plant foods and animal foods. And you'll see that all plant foods have all amino acids. So that the protein is only found in meat is a lie. Next, the worst deception that's been going on is the deception around dairy consumption. Remember, dairy is the lactation secretions of a mammal that's 5 times our size, designed to make our baby grow from infant to adult in 18 months flat. We grow from infant to adult in 18 years. How could this possibly be good food for you? Someone must have been extremely hungry somewhere in Europe, long time ago, and decided to suck on the udder of a cow. This is why Europeans have the lowest lactose intolerance frequencies. Okay. So from there, dairy got spread throughout the world, but everywhere people are lactose intolerant or lactose normal, as I call it. So India is 60 to 80% lactose intolerance. Yet India is the largest producer of dairy in the world. How did that happen? Well, India was funded by the European Economic Commission to grow its dairy industry. It was called Operation Flood. They wanted to flood India with dairy. And as a result, now India has become the largest producer of dairy and the diabetes capital of the world. Because India has this special condition, because India went through hundreds of years of colonization, during which time there were 25 famines between 1800 and 1945 that killed almost 100 million Indians. And as a result, those who survived were those who could store fat easily. So now Indians can store fat easily, and we are now getting diabetes at 4 to 6 times the rate as Europeans for the same body mass index. So colonialism 1.0, it is through famines, they made us do things that we don't want to do. and those were all engineered famines. And colonialism 2.0 is through dairy, meat, fish, and eggs that our bodies are being colonized, and so that we become customers for the drug industry. But the main intent of the European Economic Commission for Operation Flood was to get cheap beef exports from India. Because when you promote dairy consumption, then you're making people pay for the upkeep of the cow on a daily basis. So then when the cow gets killed, her body becomes cheap, right? Because she's already paid for. So so dairy is the source of cheap beef and cheap leather. So to solve this problem, we have to actually do this from the ground up, from the bottom up, from grassroots. I said the first thing we need to do is to get healthy ourselves. If we are not healthy, we're not going to be interested in the environment or the planet, because our body is also sick. So this is the oxygen mask rule. Put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. And to get healthy, we just do the opposite of the 8 risky behaviors, from poor diet to healthy vegan diet, from physical inactivity to regular exercise and yoga, from smoking to conscious breathing and pranayama, and from lack of health screening to regular health routines, from poor stress management to meditation and awareness, from insufficient sleep to adequate rest and sleep, from poor standard of care to a sense of purpose. And now we have a sense of purpose, because if we are changing the climate, we own the climate, whether we like it or not, and we better stabilize it. And from excessive alcohol consumption, it comes from a disconnection from nature. It's contact with nature, the opposite. So these are 8 healing actions, closely resemble the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. And I consider this heating to healing as an infrastructure upgrade of our civilization. And there are 7 things we need to do that I've identified. One is education. We have to teach people, tell the people this new story, spread the word. Then heal ourselves, second action. That's adopt the 8 healing actions. And then change our goals. So emphasize the social goals and adopt the vegan SDGs, not the UN SDGs. We have to come up with a constitution for how to organize ourselves when we restore the planet. So for that, there is a website called codes.earth. And I suggest you read that up and endorse the codes for a healthy earth. Then we have to do a different kind of economics called vegan donut economics, where we stay within the bounds of the planet and simultaneously meet the basic needs of humanity, 100% guaranteed. Because if we can feed 90 billion land animals, can we not feed 8 billion human beings? Of course we can. So therefore, the 800 million human beings who are going hungry every year is because of our choices. And therefore, the 10 million human beings that die of hunger-related causes every year is because of our choices. That's an ongoing Holocaust, if you ask me. And then vegan rewilding, the 6th one. You need to support rewilding efforts and come home to your true vegan nature. That's vegan spirituality. Okay. I say we have to slay a bunch of sacred cows when we do this. So the sacred cow of education, the sacred cow of the killing machine. We have to start talking about these things which we don't talk about in the current discourse. You have to completely change the education system. You have to completely change this killing machine, shut it down. The sacred cow of human purpose. We assume that our purpose is to just make money, and we now have to see that we have a larger purpose in relation to the ecosystems of the planet. And governance in terms of nation states, that's a sacred cow that we need to talk about. The sacred cow of constant economic growth, we have to talk about that. The sacred cow of the human population, does it have to keep growing forever? To talk about that. And the organized religions and how we deal with organized religions. So all of these sacred cows have to be addressed openly and with integrity. And of course, we have to transform the money game that's driving us to heat the climate. And so we have ideas for how to do that as well. I won't go into the details. And we had a debate about this at the Oxford Union in November. And this is my granddaughter now. She's 13 years old. She's holding up the the score sheet that said that we won the debate. So the Oxford Union has gone vegan as a result of our debate. So when you put it all together, I say that we started this project of heating up the climate 50,000 years ago when we spread out of Africa and went to every part of the world. That was when we started. That's when our ancestors started this project. And it's as if we've been running a marathon. And we've actually done very well. We have really heated the climate. So the Earth will never go back to another ice age again. Okay? So we're just 14 feet to the finish line of a marathon. But to finish the marathon, you have to make a U-turn. But if you go straight, there's a mirage. You see this McDonald's, and there's a clown standing outside saying, come, come, come. But it's a mirage. So if you go towards that McDonald's, you're going to fall off a cliff. Now, what's your choice? What do we want to do? So with that, I'll stop sharing.
Wow, Dr. Rao, that was wonderful. What a tour de force. Thank you so much. That was terrific. I just want to say that at the end there, you mentioned the debate you had at Oxford. That was earlier this year, correct?
It was in November of last year.
It was in November of last year. Okay. Well, I just want everybody to know that 10-minute video is actually on our website. So if people like to go to our website, go to the discussion that's called What's on Your Mind. And there's a post there that says sneak preview of tonight's talk. And that's where people can see that. And that's our website, paleblue.community. Before we go to questions, I'm just going to show, we do have these programs. And if you go to our website, you can see when the start dates are. We run a jumpstart every month. We run lift projects every month or so. We have health coaching going on all the time. And if you would like to support our work, please go to our website, Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute, rochesterlifestylemedicine.org, or you can name your phone at that QR code. We are a nonprofit. My wife and I are full-time volunteers. We do have 7 full-time employees, and to help run all of our programs, we do basically run on the generosity of a number of very generous donors. So with that, I will stop sharing, and we will now have Dr. Friedman come back on the screen, and we're going to do some Q&A here. Dr. Friedman, our Director of Clinical Studies, Professor at the University of Rochester. What have we got for questions?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for that really powerful and hopeful talk. It's very inspiring, very informative, and yeah, really an amazing talk. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say, I love the connection you make to the boundaries, the 9 boundaries. It's really fantastic. I mean, it's something that I instinctively knew back in 1991 when we became vegan. But somehow I've always been talking about, just the greenhouse gases. I know, even though it's obvious that all the land use is a huge problem.
Right.
But what's given me great confidence is that you say that, boy, if we could just get trees back on all that land, we could really turn things around, right?
Right.
Yeah. Dr. Friedman.
Okay, so one question, what will happen if we do not reach a vegan world by 2026?
It's like saying, if you just stay in the house when it's burning, what will happen? I don't know when the roof is going to fall on your head. I don't know when you're going to fall into the fire itself. I mean, a lot of bad things are happening, right? Already. Dubai just got 1.5 years worth of rain in one day. Okay. And it just flooded the whole place. So you're seeing all kinds of, and India is going through some of the worst glacial lake outburst floods. So the glaciers are melting, and then the lakes are formed, and suddenly the ice gives up. And the water just rushes down and wipes out the villages in the valley. Okay? People are dying as a result of all this. So I do not know what will happen if we don't go vegan and we start sucking down the CO2. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And actually, Dr. E.O. Wilson the late E.O. Wilson said that among all the planetary boundary transgressions, it's the loss of wild biodiversity, the loss of wild animals that our children will never forgive us.
Mm.
Okay, so, and I know that my granddaughter will never forgive me if I don't accomplish this. Yeah, especially with the wild animals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we owe it to them.
Yeah. I'll take one here. Somebody asks, the wild animals dying, do you mean death of numbers of species or absolute numbers?
It's the total numbers. So basically it's the, because, they reach, what's happening is that their habitats are being fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not even able to meet each other
Mm-hmm.
because we are cutting into their homes, so to speak. So when you cut down a forest, what happens to all the wild animals? They literally die because they don't have any other place to go. If they go, they're actually going and impinging on someone else's land, someone else's territory, and they're going to kill them. There's going to be fighting and they're going to kill them, right? So every year we are taking away another 30 million acres of forest for ourselves, or 40 million acres, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And all the animals that live there have to die off. So it's the total weight of wild animals. That's what they've been measuring.
Total weight, right, of wild animals. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen those incredible graphics that show the percentage of wild animals 10,000 years ago by weight compared to domestic animals and humans, which was 99% wild.
Right.
And now it's what?
It's 96% for humans and farmed animals, and 4% for wild animals, all put together. And even that 4% is in, you see, our farmed animals, if you just take their total weight, they only form about 60% of the total weight of animals on the planet. But our farmed animals are very young animals. They're just infants. And they're killed off before they grow up, right? So as a result, they're actually eating way more than their weight because they're babies. They're eating way more than their weight. So if you look at the total amount of food they're eating, they're the equivalent of a weight that's 82% of the total. So 82% is farmed animals. I think 16% is humans and 2% is wild animals.
Right. And just to put in a little plug here, of course, the great thing about going vegan is you can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? It's completely in our hands. This is why they don't want to talk about it, because we have the power, to completely change the system on our own.
Yeah. What else, Dr. Friedman?
A couple of questions about just how do we message this? So, in lifestyle medicine, it's often very hard to get our patients to change to a vegan diet. And how do we then message this to an even wider audience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wish I knew a simple answer, a 6-second video that I could show people and they will all go vegan instantly. We are looking for that, looking for something like that, right? It is different people have to be reached through different angles. So it is, in that sense, we have to hit a lot of different ways of messaging this to people. And something will stick to someone, right?
Not a one size fits all.
It's not one size fits all, but it's like the fire in your home. How do you tell people there's a fire in your home and you have to get out?
Yeah. I think that's actually easier.
Right.
In my opinion, my humble opinion.
Right.
And plus, there's a place for them to go. They can go out, right? We don't have any
Here
other
you're
place
in the
to go.
house.
Right.
You're in the house and you have to put out the fire and you have to rebuild the home, right?
Somebody asks what happened to your working relationship with Al Gore after you brought up the stuff that he didn't want to talk about.
Oh, it soured over. I mean, I was helping him also. After I got trained by him, I was helping him. I was one of his mentors. I was helping him train others. And then I was constantly, when I got 2 letters sent to him, one, all signed by my my colleagues in the Climate Reality Project. And the first letter he replied to us saying, it's not so bad as you think. And I thought, okay, maybe he knows more than I do, and I'm going to study some more. That was in 2009. And then by 2011, I was pretty sure that I was right, that there is, that this is one of the leading causes of climate change, if not the leading cause of climate change. So I wrote another letter to him, and this time he did not reply to me. And then I went to the training, and we had a confrontation, and then I walked out. Yeah. So 2012, I walked out. 2012, December, I walked out of his training, and I joined protesters outside the training. So I rebelled against him, and I haven't gone back since. Yeah.
Right. What else, Dr. Friedman?
There was a question about how has the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, responded to the animal agriculture issue?
The USDA is basically run by the animal agriculture industry. So the industry is running the whole show. Government. I think it got somehow subverted when the Supreme Court declared corporations as people. So now government of the people, by the people, for the people has become government of the corporations, by the corporations, for the corporations. Yeah. I'm sorry to say.
No, I think you're right about that. Dr. Rao, are you familiar with the Overton window? Have you heard of the Overton window? So this, whoops, I lost it. Anyway, the Overton window, it's this concept that in order for a political movement to be successful, there has to be a move in the window that of acceptability.
Yeah.
And I think we're still in that stage of getting people to accept even talking about this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And 150 years ago, we couldn't talk about women having the vote, right? Because that's just the Overton window wasn't there. And eventually it moved over, and then we could talk about it. So somehow we don't have as much time now.
Right, but I think the window is opening now, because I was invited by the Unitarian Church of Phoenix Valley to come and do the Earth Day sermon.
Right.
Yeah. And this is basically a mainstream church asking me to lead the sermon and talk about this topic. And they had vegan food at the end of the sermon. So, yeah, and I think they're going to have only vegan food from now on, from what I could understand. So
maybe, go ahead.
Like 9 years ago, I went to a Unitarian church, and they weren't very accepting of my message.
Right.
But now they are. Now the same church is asking me to come back, in Connecticut. So, which is a hopeful sign. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm going to make an executive decision here to go for another 5 minutes, if that's okay with you, Dr. Rao?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I know we're 6 minutes over now, but I think we're just getting started. So, in fact, Alan Spring asks, how can we help others to come to this way of thinking? So what would your answer to that be?
We have to talk to them, have to have conversations with them, and with conversations with compassion and respect, Basically, they are all like us. All of us would not hurt innocent animals unnecessarily. Okay? And to get to that realization and to actually make a transformation, you have to welcome negative emotions. And a lot of us are trained not to welcome negative emotions. Right? I mean, I had the sense of shame, as I told you. And I had a sense of guilt fall off my shoulders when I went vegan. And, these are all negative emotions that I had to overcome. And so this is why I think it's difficult for people, and we need to meet them where they are and help them come along. But there has to be some, a lot of psychologists have to be involved in this, it has to be a group effort.
So why, and I think I know because I've heard you talk about this, why is your estimate of climate impact so much higher than others? Even the World Watch Institute, a 51% estimate.
Right. Yeah. World Watch Institute also did not include the opportunity cost of the land. So I'm counting all the emissions that we did and saying we have to be accountable for all the emissions we did over the last 10,000 years. The UN only starts counting from 1800 onwards. They're only counting the last 200 years. And their reason for that is that the CO2 levels only started increasing after 1800. Before that, it didn't increase. I said, that's like saying 50 years of cheeseburger eating did not cause any heart chest pain. So therefore, it's immaterial. You know, it was building up inside, right?
Right.
And so when you start counting the entire thing, you realize that animal agriculture has actually caused so much more emissions than anything else, right? And because it's caused so much more emissions, when you stop it, it will suck down so much more of the CO2 because it releases so much land back to nature. Yeah. So
and what about the role?
Count.
Right. And what about the role of methane in that calculation?
Yeah, the methane is a very strong gas. So on a molecule by molecule basis, is much stronger than CO2 because there are very few methane molecules in the atmosphere. So it's like, all these molecules that you put into the atmosphere, they reflect radiation in certain frequency bands. Okay, so CO2 reflects in the infrared band, and methane also reflects in the infrared band, but it's a different set of frequencies. And so methane is actually 130 to 180 times more powerful than CO2, depending on on an instantaneous basis. Okay, and cows or other ruminants, when they digest their food in one stomach, they basically are digesting it with the lack of oxygen. So the methane is being formed in their stomach, and then they regurgitate and chew it again and put it into the next stomach. When they regurgitate, they emit methane from their mouth. So most of the emissions of methane from cows comes from the mouth, right? And the cows are responsible for 37%. Animal agriculture is responsible for at least 37% of the methane emissions from human sources.
Right.
And on an annual basis, the incremental heating from methane actually exceeds the incremental heating from all the fossil fuels that we burn, the CO2 from fossil fuels.
Right.
So methane from animals are causing more incremental heating than CO2 from all fossil fuel sources combined.
That's fascinating. Because there was something about they used a 100-year average.
They averaged it over 100 years because most of the time it's not methane anymore, because methane only lasts for 8.4 years, half-life of 8.4 years, and it becomes CO2. It reacts with the ozone and free oxygen radicals and becomes H2O and CO2 from CH4.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, we have obviously a lot of interest here. I'm going to make a plug now for our community forum, the Pale Blue Dot community. We actually have a space on there for discussions of climate solutions. And I would love it if people, pretty much everybody who's on this webinar has an account at our Pale Blue Dot community. If you just purchase the $5 a month subscription, you'll have access to all the spaces there that have these discussions going. And it's a 30-day free trial, so you got nothing to lose, and it does support our work. So we'd love it if you would become a subscriber to the Pale Blue Dot community, and we can carry on this conversation over there. And what I'll do is I'll take that video of Dr. Rao and I'll move it over to the climate solutions space where people can view it, because I really think you made an incredible summary there in just 10 minutes. It was fabulous. And this talk itself, and this talk will also be available on our website in a couple of days after we edit the video. So with that, I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Rao. You were fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Friedman, thank you for your help. Bob Frankie in the background, thank you so much for your excellent engineering. And yeah, and we'll see you all next month, and we'll love to see you at the Pale Blue Dot community. Thank you all and have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.